Rise Nation have officially released Methodz in place of SlasheR. Now, let's go and talk a little bit about who is Methodz. What has he done so far throughout World War II? Of course, he kind of began his term underneath the Next Threat banner, where he played alongside guys like Nogafin, Sensor, and Ricky. And without question, it was really Methodz and Nogafin who were carrying the team along. I mean, I had a countless number of times where I was casting over them in multiple matches, and it was really just a matter of Methodz carrying the load. Then it would be Nogafin kind of carrying the load. But it really kind of, early on in World War II, Methodz was really showing out what he really had in World War II, like what he could really provide to a team. And of course, as time goes on, he later gets added to the lineup alongside of Gunless from Echo Fox. They join in place of Fellow and Aqua. And at that point in this roster, it was Looney and TJ Halley left up. And it was just a pure mixture of like, what do they do from here? Like, what is possible for this Rise Nation roster? And I remember tweeting, I remember hearing a lot of other casters / analysts point of view, like Rise Nation's in a very difficult spot. Like, how do they get out of this situation? And fortunately for them, they add Methodz, of course, to the lineup. They add Gunless to the lineup, which of course happened to be kind of diamonds in the rough, essentially. Players who were kind of performing on their lineups but hadn't really seen their full potential, at least until joining alongside here on Rise Nation. Like I said, they really did make the best out of a bad situation, and that's something that I've really been looking at for Rise Nation so far throughout World War II. Since the beginning, they have looked fantastic in these roster changes. I mean, they have had a bank like kind of set up. Like, they have absolutely kind of risen to the occasion and really kind of shown themselves as to be one of the better teams, one of the better organizations when it comes down to making these changes. But kind of getting along the lines of like, who is Methodz, I also wanted to discuss and kind of bring up the difference, what he really made to the roster, and really was Methodz the right decision to be released from this team. So based off of overall placements from Rise Nation, CWL Dallas, they finished top 16. The roster change occurs. Methodz and Gunless are added to this team. Later, next event is CWL NOLA. They finish third. CWL Atlanta, quickly after that, they finish first, with Methodz, of course, being the MVP of that tournament. And then once that tournament kind of initializes, right, after Atlanta, it's kind of widely known they dominate that tournament. Prior to that, we had seen Team Caliber kind of close out back-to-back championship wins when those have been off of clutches, been off round 11 victories. I mean, there were a number of different scenarios when Team Caliber was winning, and it was like, okay, they narrowly got past that. But for this win from Rise Nation, this was kind of the first massively dominant win of the entire World War II year. And kind of after this, what kind of got initialized was that Methodz was considered to be the best AR in the game, or one of the best ARs in the game. Gunless was by far the best flex. TJ Halley was looking to be one of the better SMG players in the game, was looking to be the best S&D player in the game, and Looney was widely considered, and I think definitely deserves to be under this title, as the best in-game leader, one of the best communicators in the game. He's been kind of known as that for a while, but this tournament, CWL Atlanta, when they really showed up what they could really do, all these titles kind of quickly get added to their kind of overall arsenal. Of course, once Atlanta kind of dissipates, we see CWL Birmingham, where they ended up finishing in third place. So overall, Methodz kind of gives you a pretty big swing, right? A third place finish, a first place finish, and a third place finish. Top three, all around the board, of course, leading up until playoffs. So, but I really want to kind of discuss as well the stats right behind Methodz. What does he really provide toward this team? Of course, along with a third-place finish at NOLA, the team finishes off with a 26-13 map count. Methodz finishes off with a 1.35 overall KD ratio. That's the highest in the overall tournament, so definitely added a lot when it comes down to the slaying point of view. Where they finished first at Atlanta, they finished with a 24-6 map count record. That's absolutely unbelievable. Methodz finishes off with a 1.21 overall KD and also gets named as the MVP of the tournament. Definitely deserved that title. When I finished third at CWL Birmingham, a little bit of a less kind of impressive stat line, 18-12 in map record, and of course that was just based off of bracket play only. Methodz finished off with a 1.06 KD there as well. And over these three tournaments, Rise Nation had a 68-31 overall map record, and that's very, very impressive considering, what they, as far as their identity was when it comes down to the game modes, Search and Destroy, Hardpoint, CTF, the ones that you really talk about, very impressive considering the map count. So to me, is Methodz really the problem with the team? And I really kind of want to prove and show my point of view is the factor that he really wasn't an issue with this team. And I think a lot of the community, a lot of the pro players have kind of said as well, there was no problem with Methodz, it's fair to say. It was just a matter of a roster change that was needed for the team, kind of an opportunity to really make some bank as well. So I want to kind of talk about Methodz stats when it comes down to his even other teammates as well. So at Birmingham, bracket only play, right? TJ Halley finishes off with a 0.78 KD, worst on the team. Methodz finishes off with a 0.99. That's second best on the team in hardpoint. And Search and Destroy, TJ finishes off with a 1.23. That's the best on the team for Search and Destroy. Methodz, 0.94, second best yet again on the team. CTF, TJ Halley finishes off with a 0.87 KD, worst on the team. Methodz finishes off with a 1.27 KD, and that is the best on the team. So you see second best, and best. Pretty impressive, to say the least, when it comes down to the respawns, especially here, when it comes down to Methodz. Overall, KD from that tournament from Birmingham, TJ Halley finishes off with a 0.85. That's the worst on the team. Overall for Methodz, he finishes off with a 1.06 KD, and that is second best on the team. I believe just behind Gunless, who had a I think like a 1.10 or something on those lines. As far as Season 1 playoffs is considered, because we got stats for days. Hardpoint, TJ Halley finished off with a 0.89. That was the worst on the team. Methodz, 1.28. That's the best. Search and Destroy, TJ Halley finishes off with a 0.73. That's the worst on the team. Methodz finishes off with a 0.95. That's second best on the team. CTF, TJ Halley finished off with a 1.05, best on the team. Methodz, 1.03, just behind him. Now, of course, at second best, TJ Halley finishes off with a 0.91. That's the worst on the team. Methodz finished off with a 1.15, which was the best on the team as well. So just kind of based off those stats, you can kind of see what is deemed as TJ Halley being one of the better players on this roster. Kind of plays, at least from an overall landscape, when it comes to the KD ratios, Methodz is right up there. Like almost every time, he's either best or second best at every single game mode. But I want to preface this and say that I'm not saying that TJ Halley is not a fantastic player, because I absolutely think he is. I just don't think the term drop is correctly for Methodz in this case. It's a matter of replaced. He's not getting dropped from this team as far as his performance. It's just a matter of, hey, we think there's someone out there better, right? There's someone out there better. And like I said, I was kind of discussing TJ Halley and whatnot. He had a fantastic regular Season 1 stage, had a 1.36 Search and Destroy KD, and helped Rise secure a first place position in Division A, where they finished off like 13-1 in their overall series records. But let's talk about SlasheR. How does SlasheR compare? Why does he get added to this team? Because some of these stats are just absolutely insane, to say the least. So these are overall KDs. Dallas, 1.31. CDL NOLA, 1.23. By the way, Dallas, first in KD in the entire tournament. NOLA, 1.23, top 5 in KD at the tournament. CDL Atlanta, 1.29, number 1 KD in the entire tournament. Birmingham, bracket only, play only, because of course those are just where the stats come from. 1.07, 18th in KD in the tournament. Season 1 playoffs, 0.90, 26th in the overall KD as far as the tournament is considered. And a lot of people will say that, the AR stats are buffed, which is true, right? The AR players, in some cases, have an easier time, for the most part, at securing their kills based on their positions around the map. But you talk about at least the beginning portion of SlasheR's run, and even at bracket play in Birmingham as well, just absolute monster, and has really deemed himself to be, in everyone's opinions, at least a top 3 AR in the game, if not from a sheer kind of slang point of view, the best AR in the entire game as well. And these were just some stats that I know. I think this is actually from JP of COD Stats. He pointed out this as well. He said, Team EnVyUs game mode win percentage when SlasheR went negative. Hardpoint win percentage, whenever SlasheR, of course, went negative, 16.67%. CTF win percentage when SlasheR went negative, 2 and 6, 25%. Search and Destroy win percentage when, of course, SlasheR went negative, 16.67. I mean, this team, when SlasheR is not playing well, they're losing every single time. I mean, there's a 16% chance that they're winning a hardpoint or a Search and Destroy, and there's a fourth of the time that they're winning a CTF. I mean, that just goes to show the overall presence that a guy like SlasheR really brought to his past team and Team EnVyUs. But when it comes down to the potential positives / negatives of this change, right, we talk about the financial benefit, right? SlasheR, unrestricted free agent. Since the new year, in an article with Deserto, he ended up saying that he's actually didn't renew his contract with Team EnVyUs. He's kind of been an unrestricted free agent, which means he is not liable to a contract. So if someone wants to pick him up, it's for free. They're getting a free kind of load from that. So if you're Rise Nation, I get a free player in SlasheR, but I have a top 3 AR player in Methodz who I can sell to whoever I want. So I'm in the least making money off of this trade, which is fantastic for me. You can't even really call it a trade. You just call it a pickup, and then you obviously release another player. But one thing that, as far as communication, which is my worry, and one thing that could be a negative as far as things are considered, like I said, is communication, right? You talk about Ludi, one of the best in-game leaders in the entire game, most likely he's not going to leave that role. So one thing that really is going to be a big thing is going to be SlasheR and Looney's communication on this team. Gunless can be vocal from time to time, but he's not really known as being an outspoken person. TJ Halley, when it comes down to his game modes, can be vocal from time to time, but he doesn't really seem to me as like a guy who's going to kind of get mixed in that conversation. To me, it's really going to be between SlasheR and Looney. And if we know anything about, SlasheR, he has had in his past issues with vocal personalities. I mean, everyone knows the classic Black Ops 3 Envy SlasheR versus Aches, the amount of arguments that really went on, the Reddit posts, the YouTube videos that were made. SlasheR doesn't really have the best track record when it comes down to working with certain teammates, right? Especially vocal teammates as well. Then you talk about later, SlasheR given control of what happens to Team EnVyUs. After a runner-up, a second-place finish at COD Champs, he is given the team, drops 3 teammates, forms a reunion team of the old Denial, back from Advanced Warfare, picks up Classic, picks up Timp, picks up Huke. Then in an interview that he actually did with Desirto, the same one I was talking about where he discussed that he was an unrestricted free agent, I actually have a quote from this Desirto interview, and the question was asked, what's been the problem? What's been the problem with the roster? And of course, quote here from SlasheR, everything, literally everything. We're literally not a team. We don't communicate in-game well at all. This is probably the worst communication-based team I've ever had, and that's a big issue in boots on the ground. Talent only takes you so far. It comes down to teamwork, communication, and just playing smart. So at least SlasheR realizes what the problem is, right? He at least knows that, hey, the communication is not happening with this team. But you also have to say, listen, this is what you initialized. This is what you had kind of orchestrated. And I think a reign under SlasheR, a team who is dominated by SlasheR, where technically he does it all, I'm not sure if he felt the pressure and felt like, when it comes into communication, he needs to do that as well, because he was obviously doing everything for this team, communication, in-game stuff, out-of-game stuff, whatever it really may be. So I know there were a few people saying, hey, you're joining Rise Nation, let Looney take the lead and just focus on your game. You no longer have to do everything. You can kind of sit back, relax, let Looney kind of take control, and you can kind of sit back in the back seat and just kind of dominate your way to even increasing those stats and whatnot. So, for right now, of course, kind of going on with certain things. Would I personally make this trade? Probably not, just because I feel like it's a little bit too risky to go from, as far as certain terms, a top 3 AR to another top 3 AR. People would consider SlasheR a better, kind of pure shooting player, better than Methodz, but I think the issues that could arise with that to me are a little bit worrisome. I would say I don't blame Rise, right? I don't want to blame Rise for, this decision. I think they don't want to find themselves in a downward spiral of a team where there's a financial benefit and arguably the best Slayer is available in the game, especially from the assault rifle category. Many teams are saying this is their last chance to make a change, which it isn't, but you don't really want to have an issue with communication going into Seattle, out of Seattle, then loading into Champs, and you have all the events kind of coming up. You want to initialize that kind of chemistry and that teamwork as soon as humanly possible. So, I say it's possible, and it makes sense to me. That I'd say go for it if you have the opportunity, and the destiny is obviously in their hands. But maybe I'm just thinking a little bit too much on SlasheR's attitude, but I think it is going to be very interesting to see how SlasheR can kind of mix with this team. We talk about Methodz. Fantastic player for them. I don't consider him dropped. I consider him replaced. He's not dropped from this team as far as my terminology is considered. He was rather replaced by a player who Rise Nation thinks is a better Slayer in his point of view. How will he communicate with the team? How will he act with that roster is really going to decide whether or not this team can be one of the best in the game or kind of continue on what has been their falter for the last few events.